Hello, this is our first YouTube video for English 131. Before the coronavirus, I gave everybody a copy of a poem called Madam and Her Madam. If you don't have a copy of that, as I said in Moodle, you can Google that title, Madam and Her Madam, and you can find it pretty easily. We're going to discuss that poem a little bit, and I'm going to try to use that as an example for how you write about literature. This is not something that you can write your paper on because I've written a paper on it. Right? This is a sample paper that I wrote, and I'm going to be sending that to you, or I guess posting it on Moodle, so you can see what I've written about this poem. So it's sort of an example, a model for you to consider in getting ready for your essay that you're going to write on Thursday if you're in the Tuesday-Thursday class, or on Friday if you're the Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. So as you know, I like to read a poem before we discuss it. I made an extra big version of it here. My son has a whiteboard somewhere, and I wanted to use that, but I couldn't find the whiteboard, so we're just going to look at this photocopy, and I've got a piece of paper I can use kind of like a chalkboard. All right, so I don't know if you can read that, but I'll hold it up while I read the poem. It's called Madam and Her Madam. We read two other poems by Langston Hughes, one called Mother to Son and one called Mama and Daughter. Okay. This one is about a character that Langston Hughes calls Madam. Her real name is Alberta Johnson, but she prefers to go by Madam because that's kind of a term of respect, and she wants to be respected. This is a poem in which she is talking about her work. She cleans a house for another woman, and since that woman is her boss, her employer, she has to call that woman Madam. So that's why it's Madam and Her Madam. Okay, here we go. It says, I worked for a woman. She wasn't mean, but she had a 12-room house to clean. Had to get breakfast, dinner, and supper too. Then take care of their children when I got through. Wash, iron, scrub, walk the dog around. It was too much, nearly broke me down. I said, Madam, can it be you trying to make a pack horse out of me? She opened her mouth. She cried, oh no, you know, Alberta, I love you so. I said, Madam, that may be true, but I'll be dogged if I love you. I really like this poem. You can see my copy of it here, covered with notes. That's a good thing to do when you're getting ready to write about literature. Take notes all over it, things that you think might be relevant for the paper. So with your other essays, I gave you a topic in advance, so you kind of knew what you might be writing about. Like, for example, the other two Langston Hughes poems, the topic was, what do these two poems say about the intent and effect of parental advice? In this case, the topic is, what does Hughes's poem Madam and Her Madam suggest about economic inequality? Right? Economic inequality. All right, so what I want to do is discuss the poem here a bit, maybe with a pen in hand, in case I want to mark anything, make some various points. Um, and then, from that marked up poem, you can you make your paper from the marked up poem. You can, of course, have your poem with you when you're writing your paper on Thursday or Friday. Um, but here we go. All right. Normally, I interact with the class, right? I ask questions and then we have a discussion. So I'll just have to do it all myself, I think. So she says, I worked for a woman. She wasn't mean, but she had a 12-room house to clean. So this is somebody who, if you have a 12-room house, you have some money. You know, you don't have a lot of money. If you count the rooms in your house, you probably have more than you think, but still, a 12-room house is a decent sized house. So this is a person who has some money, and Madam begins by saying she wasn't mean, you know. Madam cleans her house for her, but she's not trying to make Madam's life miserable. She needs her house cleaned. Well, from the homeowner's perspective, it's a 12-room house, right? From Madam's perspective, it's a 12-room house to clean, right? The woman didn't buy it because she wants to clean the house. She wants it because she wants to have the house. But from Madam's perspective, it's a house that needs to be cleaned. She says, had to get breakfast, dinner, and supper too. So what I notice is, you know, this sounds like the daily cycle. Had to get breakfast and dinner. That sounds like the beginning and the end of the day. But then she goes on to say, and supper too. In old times, dinner was considered the noon meal. They called it noon dinner. Um, so I think this poem has a number of kind of false endings. It sounds like the whole daily cycle here had to get breakfast and dinner. That sounds like that's the end there. And supper too. Well, okay, that's the end of the day. Then take care of her children when I got through. Wow, okay. So that sounds the end of the day, like the end of the day, and especially when you end with the word through, it sounds like finished, right? End of stanza. It's got a period. There are lots of things that indicate her work is done. Then it picks up again. Wash and iron. Well, that's another whole cycle of processing the laundry from being dirty through washing, through ironing, and then you're done. But that's not the ending. It goes on. And scrub. So she's got to not only do the laundry, but she's got to clean the house. Walk the dog around. Wow. So she's a servant not only to the family and the children, but even the dog, right? Normally we wouldn't say, I have to go walk the dog around. You'd say, I have to go walk the dog. Well, I think Hughes adds this word around to suggest two things. First of all, you talk about walking the dog around. It just sounds like it's pointless, right? And walking around, you're kind of going in a circle, which again seems kind of pointless. It's like I'm getting nowhere. It's the sense of the endless cycle that's taking care of this woman's house. She says it was too much, nearly broke me down. Right? The word down suggests, if you're the one who's doing somebody else's cleaning for them, then your status is down. You're put in a lower position than them, right? So that kind of emphasizes that. So she says, Madam, can it be you trying to make a pack horse out of me? Well, you know what a pack horse is. A pack horse is a beast of burden, right? It's an animal that is intended to or forced to carry your goods, right? And in this case, Madam feels like she's being made into a pack horse because she's not physically carrying the other woman's material goods, but she's carrying the burden of cleaning and maintaining them, right? So she feels like she's being reduced to an animal level. Right? She's even a servant to the dog again, right? So she asks that question, are you trying to make a pack horse out of me? And the homeowner, it says, she opened her mouth. She cried, oh no, you know, Alberta, I love you so. Right? So she opened her mouth, which I think is supposed to emphasize or kind of depict surprise, of the open mouth, right? And she said, oh no, listen, look at all the O sounds in this stanza. She opened her mouth, she cried, oh no. And that line ends with the word no, so that you imagine her standing there with her mouth open. You you know, Alberta, I love you so. I think they're trying to emphasize, the poet's trying to emphasize the woman's rounded open mouth, the surprise that um, Madam isn't happy with her job as a housekeeper, which shouldn't be too surprising. She says, I love you so, right? And this is a familiar thing that people with money often talk about their help as, in personal terms. Oh, she's the most wonderful person. I just love her. She's such a dear. Um, but it's a business arrangement, and you hire somebody to clean your house, and they're kind of your servant. Um, it's not. I think it's easier for the person who is hiring the house cleaner to feel affection towards the house cleaner because they're doing their work for them. It's easier for the affection to go in that direction than the other way around. I don't think house cleaners are usually in love with the people they clean their houses, whose houses they clean. Um, but this is a surprise to the um, to the homeowner, and here comes Madam in response. She says, "Madam, that may be true, but I'll be dogged if I love you." So that's got a good kind of punchline ending where Madam gets to tell off her homeowner employer. Um, when she says, I'll be dogged, that word it has a couple different meanings, right? I'll be dogged, meaning I'll be damned, or I'll be darned, that kind of thing. Or, I'll be dogged, meaning hounded, um, run ragged. But also, I had a student once who said um, people often report stories about interactions they had with somebody, um, and embellish the story to make themselves seem heroic. And maybe that's what Madam is doing here. Um, this guy, he was an older guy, and he said, he sees people all the time say, and then I told him, when actually in real life they probably didn't say something confrontational, but probably said, well, I guess so, but I disagree. So in this case, maybe because Madam is the one who gets to tell the story, she tells it in a way that makes her seem like she told off her employer. Um, but there's another interesting thing. If we look back at the beginning of the poem, it says, I worked for a woman. It's in the past tense. Why doesn't she work for her anymore? Well, I think there are two possibilities. She's telling this story about something that happened in the past. It might be that she got fired because she was rude to her employer, um, which might be why it's in the past tense. But it also might be that, when she says this, it might not be a foolish mistake that gets her fired. It might be her way of quitting because the job is a threat to her dignity, right? So she's reclaiming her dignity here. She says, "That's right. You may love me, but I don't love you," which reverses that power relationship, so that she's the one who's in the superior position. And of course, again, it's her story, so she gets to tell it, and make herself the hero of the story. So, all right. Notice that I went through this poem when I'm discussing it pretty much kind of chronologically, followed the poem as it was written. But to do that in an essay that you're writing is not the most effective way to organize a paper. What I'll do now is I will post the essay, and then in a separate video, we'll discuss that essay. So I'll post the essay, you can read the essay, and then hear my discussion of it. Great. See you in a minute.